A Day in a Nightmare is the first series I've ever created on this channel, and I don't think I need to say how outdated and old Season 1 and 2 are. So, making recaps of both seasons I think will definitely help you guys in the long run, as you can remember the characters and plot points for future seasons, or maybe you're new but don't want to binge 100 plus episodes if you're used to how my content is now. So, I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to let you guys watch the Season 1 recap. I'll also be releasing the Season 2 recap pretty soon, so stick around for that. I think something to mention for you guys is that I'm going to be going through this stuff kind of quickly, so if you want to rewatch this video or go back to some parts, then feel free to do so. I'm not keeping you hostage here. Okay, but first things first, Season 1 is set up in the year 2020, but goes throughout 2021. And it starts to introduce us to our main four characters, which are all FNAF 4 Nightmare animatronics. Nightmare Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Plushtrap, Nightmare, Fredbear, Mangle, BB, and Nightmarion. And at first, life was pretty casual. That was until one day, Freddy decided to express his trauma as he became a nightmare. And it all started when he and his friends were destroyed at their old pizzeria. And after he told Plushtrap this, a man who turned them into what they are appears and kidnaps Freddy. The group tries searching for Freddy during this time, but suddenly they get a message from the man responsible for destroying them, Springtrap. And he tells them to go to the same pizzeria he destroyed them in. But before going, Nightmare Fredbear informs everyone that he thinks he knows who Springtrap is. But after that, they head off to save Freddy. But actually, Nightmare was left when everyone else went. Just because. But then suddenly a portal opened, bringing in another Bonnie from the Five Nights at Jade and G world. Now usually you would see who this Bonnie was and how he got here, but Jaden's channel got deleted and all the videos that showed that are all also lost media. But take my word for everything I say for now. The gang find Freddy and a battle breaks out between Springtrap accompanied by his minions, the woodland creatures. And then Bonnie and Nightmare arrive, and soon the battle ends with Freddy being free and Springtrap teleporting away, which is never brought up again. We get introduced to more threats over the next few episodes, like Endoplush, who disguises himself as a Nightmare Cupcake for Chica. Springtrap makes mutants called Pinky and Rhino, clones of Bonnie and Chica called the Jackos, and Terratron. But we do also get more friends introduced to the main characters, such as Frostbear and Lewis. This pattern does continue throughout the first season as more friends and enemies get introduced, but there are specific storylines that do get sprinkled in, like a time-traveling closet called the Fourth Closet that was being searched for by this bear named Monochrome Freddy, who got trapped in Foxy's closet because he thought it was the Fourth Closet, which it wasn't. And after he failed to find it, he went back to his master Springtrap, which we all know, but Springtrap actually kills him for failing. And we also get introduced to another new character who takes Monochrome Freddy's skin and becomes Molten Freddy, who eventually attacks Lewis, this is the first episode that he gets introduced in, but Bonnie comes in to save him from Molten Freddy, and he becomes a part of the main group too. Now we get introduced to another new character named Fredica, who visits Terratron to obtain this crystal or a set of them called Keystones. These don't get much of an answer at this point other than being a source of power that Terratron can use to power the costume, which are both details to remember. And she successfully gets the one from Terratron's possession and she escapes with it, but she doesn't know that the one she has on her now is actually a fake one. And she actually runs into Bonnie and Lewis coincidentally, and so does Nightmare Cupcake. And remember that Nightmare Cupcake is actually just a costume for Endoplush, and Endoplush is working for Terratron. So he ends up attacking them, but it ends poorly for him as Chica discovers the truth and takes him out. Endoplush does tell him about the cooperation with Springtrap, but is let go at the time. But before leaving, he does inform Fredica that she has a fake keystone, and one of the real ones is inside Endoplush himself. But he dips after he informs this, and he informs Terratron of his failure. But Terratron replies that there's actually another spy inside, which doesn't get brought up again actually throughout the rest of the season. But like before, like I said with other things, it's a detail to remember. So the thing about Frostbear is that he came from an island called the Frosty Islands, which was his home, but his home got attacked by the Jackal clones that were mentioned earlier, and he found Freddy and he's been staying with them since then. But Frostbear was convinced to go back to Frost Islands by Nightmare Mangle, out of hope of fixing it, and when he gets there, it's all destroyed, except for one thing at the moment. The royal guard for Frostbear, Frostbite BB, actually survived, and he helps him put the crystal heart back into the mountain, which could hopefully restore the life to the island itself. But Pinky and Rhino are actually able to intercept them as Frostbear climbs up the mountain to fix everything, but unfortunately Pinky launches onto him and causes an avalanche that kills both Pinky and Rhino and Frostbear. But before Frostbite BB leaves, he actually discovers another survivor from the attack, that being Frost Plushtrap, who was actually Frostbear's brother, and he unfortunately discovers that his brother died in the avalanche, but Pinky did not. But that doesn't last long either, as Frost Plushtrap also kills her at that time, in a matter of minutes. So they finally leave, but as they left, Frostbear's body is lifted up into the air and suddenly it disappears. We're then introduced to another new ally, Golden Freddy, who Freddy has some vision or dream about, but he is creepily watching, waiting for his time. We then get introduced to the Twisted Ones, who specifically Twisted Wolf the leader becomes the main villain of Season 1, as the old adversary of them, Theodore, reveals that Springtrap was never actually evil, but instead made evil due to them messing with him, but it could be fixed by placing Springtrap's CPU back inside him, and this was revealed to Freddy and the others, and they then plan on saving him. Fredica, Theodore, and Freddy choose to go on this mission and make it through all of Springtrap's current allies and then get a hold of Springtrap himself, which they do, and they place the CPU inside of him, and suddenly he's no longer hostile, but he now has no memory of who he is. But before Springtrap can be brought back with everyone else now that he was turned good, Twisted Wolf stabs him in the back and kills him right there and then, and seemingly it was all for nothing. That was until somehow, Springtrap's soul ended up in another place, another dimension, a place called Dead Space, and a guardian of that realm named Glitch Baby lies to Springtrap when he's there, telling him that he's in his mind, but another wanderer of Dead Space, Toby the Tiger, lets him know that she was lying and that they can actually try to escape together. And that is when Springtrap and Toby find a crack in Dead Space which they go through, making their escape successful. Now, when Freddy and his group left to save Springtrap, they left some of the others behind back at the house because they wanted them to be safe, but they don't trust that everything went according to plan, so they insist on finding Freddy, but they leave Plushtrap back home alone, where two of the Twisted Ones actually try and break in, which, I mean, they do break in, but they're trying to find the watch that got the Jaden Bonnie to this world, and Plushtrap try using these Home Alone style traps. I mean, look at this. And at the last second, as they're about to gang up on Plushtrap, Golden Freddy comes in to stop them and take Plushtrap somewhere else to get him safe. And after they're away from the house, Golden Freddy has to try and find his friend in frickin' China, who is an instructor for martial arts, named Tari. And he's specifically wanting her to help Freddy and all of his other friends train, as something is definitely going to be happening very soon. But now, after Springtrap and Toby's escape, Toby actually ended up with Golden Freddy and his group, but Springtrap wasn't able to be seen anywhere, and unfortunately, Glitch Baby finds out about this escape, and she sends out a personal scout to obtain at least one of them, and he does that by taking control of Tari to get everyone on their feet, and he does exactly what he's told, and takes Toby back to Dead Space, which has been the last appearance of this character since then. But what really happened to Springtrap is that his soul left Dead Space and it just re-entered his body, which he then fights back Twisted Wolf, and he basically defeats him at that moment. But it would not be the last they see of Twisted Wolf. We then have another introduction to someone named Yendo, which in the original FNAF lore is just a bare endoskeleton, but the interpretation here is that he has a suit and possesses superpowers, that he often uses to defy against foes like Purple Geist, and we do see that on display, but he only actually serves as a distraction at this time for Yendo, and he teleports away, and so does Yendo. We then have the moment where everyone that was on their own little side quest gets back together, and so does Yendo to come and alert them of purple guys that is actually coming to attack them. But it is too late for everyone to try and leave as purple guys actually arrives, and a fight does break out between all of them. But suddenly during this fight, the crystal heart that Frostbite BB is holding on to starts shaking and powering up, and lo and behold, Frostbear actually returns, and he gets purple guys out of here. It's also revealed that Yendo knows Fredica, and that purple guy specifically attacked them because of Fredica's quest on collecting the Keystones, and he suspected that she had some on her, so yeah. But when Frostbear was brought back, he explains how that actually was able to happen, and it was because his soul, after he died, entered the heart, and he just randomly rematerialized. And most episodes down the line later would just bring in more allies of Twisted Wolves, especially with one of them capturing Jade and Bonnie and being put in a cell with Lewis and the woodland creatures, which the only reason why they're there is because that they were loyal to Springtrap and not Twisted Wolf, and they didn't trust Twisted Wolf, so they were captured too. But as the trope goes, they all do eventually escape and just go venture throughout the wilderness, just trying to go back home. But as they're venturing out in the wilderness, Lewis finds a puppet mask, and he then transforms after the puppet mask is put on his face, and everyone fixes Lewis by making him sneeze out the mask, and they then continue to make it back home. This was the plot of an episode. But Woodland Freddy actually holds on to the mask that was on Lewis, and this is a detail to remember. Like a very important detail to remember later on. There's also then a small series of the Willy's Wonderland characters attacking the cast, but they all meet the same fate. But Twisted Wolf, being who he is, just continues to bring them back, as well as many of their previous and new enemies face in order to build an army for a coming war against Freddy, which you will see by the end of this video. But you may remember that Jade and Bonnie is from another universe, and it will only be a matter of time before people from his world will come to look for him. And that is exactly what happens. It's specifically when Twisted Wolf tries building up his army that two people from the Jaden world, Toy Bonnie and the Burning Fox, come, and they try to find Bonnie to bring him back. But Burning Fox, for people who knows or doesn't know, he likes to break the fourth wall just cause that's his character, and he kind of tries doing that here too, which does cause some problems. The world basically freezes in time, and it's almost like it's all a show or a program. And this is where we meet the creator, Adam. But I think it's less confusing if you guys should call this version Blue-Haired Adam, which that is what most of the people actually call him, because there is the OC version of me in this series, spoilers, but they all both have the same name. They just don't have a different name at this time. They're both called Adam. There's not much explanation to this. But for it to be less confusing, just call this Adam Blue-Hair Adam. And you can kind of see that as he locks Burning Fox and Toy Bonnie in his office to prevent them from messing with everything else. And after he does that, he then resumes the episode as if nothing ever happened. And it's basically as if they didn't even come to interfere with Freddy or anything. And instead, it's Jade and Bonnie and the rest that came back finally after this time. But like we saw previously, Toy Bonnie and Burning Fox are able to easily escape because Blue-Haired Adam forgot to lock it. And they do actually find their Bonnie, and they try to bring him back with them to the Jaina world, but Bonnie is very hesitant and honestly in denial at this point because he's actually grown a hardship with this universe. And it does take a little more for Bonnie to actually remember why he needs to go back, specifically for his friends that are back there. But even after this, Bonnie does agree to go back, but only after they resolve the conflict with Twisted Wolf, which the Burning Fox and Toy Bonnie agree to help out with. And then more of Twisted Wolf's goons attack, and it ends how you expect it to. But the Burning Fox, being who he is able to see how corrupt this place actually is, mainly because of Blue-Hair Adam. And Bonnie wants to actually help some of the people here, if this is true. So he actually goes into Freddy's mind, letting him know of this, only for Blue-Hair Adam to show up and try to take control back of Freddy. And Bonnie gets out of his mind, and suddenly Blue-Hair Adam is ready to beat the crap out of... I don't know why that was funny. Blue-Hair Adam is ready to fight Burning Fox and Bonnie, and he thinks he can do this easily as he has Freddy back under his control. That is until he actually isn't. Freddy is actually free of Blue-Haired Adam's control, and he starts beating him up to protect his friends. Meanwhile, back with Twisted Wolf, he's just slowly getting his army prepared for the coming war. but then he's suddenly pulled away by two, Vanny and Glitchtrap. And these characters will build up throughout the first season in, like, the very last bits of some of the episodes. But, like, their whole vendetta throughout those episodes has been to find these tapes, which aren't talked about for what they do at this time. But apparently Twisted Wolf made a deal with them that he helped find them. And that's something that Twisted Wolf has not done throughout all this time, so Glitchtrap attempts to kill him at this point, only for Twisted Wolf to have a few tricks up his sleeves, and he actually encapsulates Glitchtrap as a little vessel for a machine that he's built, which will be revealed soon, but he also forces Vanny now to work with him. But even though Glitchtrap was used as a vessel for this robot, he's still conscious inside it, and he swears that he'll get out and destroy everything. I probably should have mentioned this earlier when talking about Frostbear, but his parents, Black Eyes Frostbear and Arctic Ballora, were also killed by the Jackos when they came to destroy Frosty Islands. But since Frostbear was able to come back after he was killed, then so could his parents, and that's finally what happens as the Crystal Heart releases Black Eyes Frostbear and Arctic Ballora back into their physical forms, and a family reunion commences. But they get attacked by Twisted Wolf's goons again, which it ends how you expect it to. But Freddy, Jade and Bonnie, and the Burning Fox arrive to let them know of Bluehair Adam, who comes back after he was chucked off a cliff, but he doesn't attack them as he isn't really supposed to since he's the creator, and instead lets them know that Doomsday is coming. Then we're finally brought back to Molten Freddy, who is just out in the wilderness, but he then comes across Lefty, who he actually knew. But then they're attacked by Scraptrap and Scrap Baby, and they do fight for a little bit, but they realize it's kind of pointless to do this, and instead they insist on getting to know each other. Yeah. It's not long after, though, the introductions are made, and Twisted Wolf's henchmen also come in to try and prepare for war, and they do that by attacking random people. But Scrap Baby lets them know that that's not going to happen with them, as she chops off Willie's head, like, clean off, and then the rest run. But they become curious of the war that they mentioned they were training for, so they now insist on trying to figure out what it is and maybe stop it. Now back with Adam, as he informed the group of Doomsday coming, they realize that they have to prepare very soon for war, but Freddy starts to lose some hope as he realizes that this might be more than what he thinks it already was, and that the world may end because of it. The salvagers go through with what they were thinking, and they try to attack Twisted Wolf and his minions to try and stop him, but at this time they just don't stand a match to him, and they get captured. Jade and Bonnie then has a conversation with Yendo, letting him know that he will leave, but he doesn't want to still. But he must. And then Purple Geist attacks for a warm-up, I guess, same as Willie, and it doesn't for him too because he just gets blasted off again. Freddy then just lies down for a minute to just think, but he's then back in his mind suddenly by Night Marion, who was another Nightmare friend that anyone could remember. I'm not sure if you remember him, but he has the power to read into Freddy's mind, and as he's in Freddy's mind, he tries changing his perception into having hope and winning the war. And then it's only now that Twisted Wolf reveals what his big project is. The thing that Glitchtrap was needed as a vessel for. A mech to destroy and give them an advantage. Mechadon. And now we enter the first movie of the series. Lullabi. I don't know why I said it like that. Anyways, now on to Lullabi. The film begins with the salvagers being thrown into a cell, and seemingly they have no escape. That is until they find some rubble on top of someone inside the cell with them, and they remove it, and a possible ally to assist them is awoken, Dreadbear. Freddy and everyone are all together to discuss how they'll be going to war real soon. Then Twisted Wolf arrives at their house to let them know of where they're going to have the battle, and though everyone's suspicious, they go to where he said. Freddy and his friends make it to the battlefield, and so does Twisted Wolf's army, and then the battle finally begins. But as the fight goes on, everyone shows their skills, but ultimately it dials down to Twisted Wolf having an advantage. And Freddy gets thrown down, getting seriously hurt, and everyone else gets beat or captured. But those who didn't group up and are teleported away by Golden Freddy. And the group that teleported away with Golden Freddy now have to think of what to do, but then it's only at that moment that Golden Freddy turns withered, because his power couldn't handle all the people he teleported away. And that supposedly kills him at that moment. And hope is seemingly lost. But then suddenly a space shuttle flies down and another wolf offers to help them, Wendy. She lets them know of the plan to stop Twisted Wolf and informs them of how she and another wolf friend of hers went up against Megalodon before, and she lost her friend and her eye from the encounter. And the only way to beat the mech is with something just as powerful as it. The gang then traveled to another planet to retrieve another giant creature called Synthesis. They arrive at the planet and they do retrieve Synthesis, but it's actually just a setup to seem like he's going to be on their side. But he's actually already on Twisted Wolf's side, secretly. And this later reveals that Wendy is actually the daughter of Twisted Wolf. And the story she told them was just a lie, and Freddy came to discovering this lie, but she's knocked out by Twisted Wolf, who snuck on board the ship in secret, waiting for their plan to work. But back with everyone at home who was captured, they were slowly saved by the salvagers, who were able to break out of their own prison thanks to Dreadbear. And the remaining group finally returns to Earth and are prepared, thinking that they have a chance to win now. But then that's when the betrayal is revealed, and instead, there's actually two monsters on Twisted Wolf's side. But then suddenly Wendy is shot in the head by one of the salvages, and the rematch goes on with a successful defeat of Megalodon by the hands of Dreadbear, and a few other kills of some of them as well. But Synthesis proves himself to be a lot stronger than he seems, and wipes out a lot of the people. And it's only when he gets to Freddy that suddenly Golden Freddy rises from the ashes to save him and cuts Synthesis with his own blade. And slowly Twisted Wolf's army depletes and they all give up. And the war seemingly ends as Yendo uses his power to teleport the rest of the enemies to hell. And that is something that he does. And that's a detail to remember too. There's a lot of details to remember. Just remember that one though. Golden Freddy explains he's still alive due to him actually having two souls inside of him, which those two souls are named Cassidy and Evan. The names aren't dropped in season 1, but those are names to remember. Just remember those names. And when Golden Freddy died at that moment, supposedly only one of the souls inside of him died. Supposedly. But Twisted Wolf himself is still alive, and he tries to do whatever he can to win at the last minute. But Freddy comes right beside him with a gun and point blank shoots him right then and there, with the war now officially ending. Jane and Bonnie now has to return since the battle with Twisted Wolf is completed, and he stayed to finish it, and so Bonnie says his final goodbyes to Freddy, and now things seem to be normal again, despite the connection they grew. But only then does more build up for what you're gonna see in season 2. So kind of what I mentioned earlier, this is the OC of me that I mentioned is in this series, and yeah, it's not Blue Hair Adam me, it's just another version of me that shares the same name. And basically where the OC version of me has been was also in Jaden's universe, which the videos that show that are also gone. But just take my word for it, okay? Trust me, it all happened. But for those who haven't seen season 2 or don't remember a lot about season 2, you probably remember a lot about Blue Hair Adam. But if you haven't, or if you don't know, then stick around, because I promise you, this is only the beginning. It literally is just the beginning. This is season 1. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye!
I stay lit, not like flickering lights. Good vibes and good times go well like chicken with rice. Squad goes, it's me, myself, and I, and just like smart homes. Trust me, the whole club know I arrived. I just wanna step over a velvet rope and people yell my name like a welcome home. Shower me in love, my umbrella's closed. The club going up just like how swellings grow. Put on my finest pair of clothes, club so packed I could barely